Hello and welcome to another episode of Set Musings. This is the one for Urza's Destiny. Urza's Destiny is a small set and it's the third set from the Urza Saga block. So you can see I'm all queued up again on Scryfall. Here is the set in its entirety. It's interesting to contrast this against the more recent set I did recently, Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. You can see it's a big difference in the the variations of cards. Here we don't really get obviously multiple artwork or anything like that. I'm just seeing if there's anything at the end. Sometimes there's a few promo cards. No, not in this particular set. One of the nice things actually before I start to dive into the cycles and everything, and after we've dealt with all the different aspects of the set, I'll go back to the individual cards to cover anything I've missed. But before I do that, one thing that I do find very useful Scryfall is this feature up here, the sets feature. When you go into that, it rather conveniently and not surprisingly lists all the sets, and what's nice is you can come down and you can sort of see 4 sets, and this is particularly useful for older sets if there were in fact any special promos or anything like that. And they will tend to list those independently, or they'll show as like a subset. There was just one. What was the promo for? Oh, it was False Prophet. There you go. That looks like there must have been a pre-release promo or some sort of release promo. So, things to look out for in the set. We've still got cycling, but there's a twist on that, and I'll come to that in a moment. And you'll see what's been done in the set. Growing enchantments, still enchantment heavy. There's also auras specifically, creature enchantments. There's some leave play stuff, so when stuff dies, there's cards that leverage that. There's some reveal spells. I think they're also called Lobotomy spells. You'll see what I mean when I get to those. And there's also some graveyard centric spells as well, in addition to the spells that trigger when a creature dies. There's spells in the set that care about cards being in the graveyard. So we'll go initially through some of the broader themes, and then we'll get on to the cycles. So as I've said, enchantment's still a thing in the set. We've got a number of multiple enchantments, and I'll come on to some of these when we deal with the cycles. But I just wanted you to get a feel for each colour, roughly how many enchantments there were. And you can see that generally it's not particularly balanced. You may find in some colours there's more enchantments than others. And again, a mixture of both auras and regular enchantments. So auras are, enchantments that enchant a creature, and at multiple rarities as well. And you can see what I was talking about a moment ago, where if we go back to these creatures, we've got these growth enchantments, these growing creature enchantments. We have, let's see if we got any here. I don't think I see any. I'm just looking to see if enchantments have any of the other mechanics in the set on them. They're not specific to the set, so you can see there's another growth enchantment there. There's one that cares about stuff going into the graveyard. Oh, and there's another one there. When enchanted creature is put into the graveyard and play, that creature controller may search its sort of library for a creature card and put that card into play. So yeah, 29 enchantments in the set. There's a number of artifacts as well. And you can see a few ones that people might be familiar with that played a lot in different formats. And when we come to look at the prices of some of these cards, you'll sort of see which ones have a tendency to be played in eternal formats. We've got Metalworker in here, Thran Dynamo, Urza's Incubator, those sort of artifacts. Okay, so it doesn't look like there's much cycling going on, but I'll explain why in a moment. So we have, I suppose you could call it regular cycling here. There's just 3 cards with cycling on them. Cycling's in the rest of the set, so it's no surprise to see it. There's just not a ton of it. Fend Off, cycling 2, 1 on white to cast. Target creatures no combat damage this turn. Rapid Decay, 1 on a black. Remove from the game up to 3 target creatures in a single graveyard. And Flame Jet, 1 on a red. Flame Jet deals 3 damage to target player. And you can see cycling again, it's always a cost of 2. So focusing on things that care about being put into the graveyard. So obviously these cards would have the old style templating where it refers to be putting into the graveyard. In terms of the oracle text and the modern words that are used for this on creatures, then it's dies. That's why I'm doing a search here for dies. And you can see there's a number of these. Across all the colours. And there's an artifact as well. Some of these you may notice in a moment are part of a cycle, but others aren't. And some are pretty powerful, like False Prophet. False Prophet is put into a graveyard from play, remove all creatures from the game. When Academy Rector is put into a graveyard from play, you remove Academy Rector from the game. If you do, search the library for an enchantment card and put that card into play, then shuffle your library. And you can see here's another one. When it's put into the graveyard, it does something. You gain control of enchantments. This one, you draw a card. This one is a growth creature. Sorry, not a growth creature, a growing creature enchantment, but it also has something that triggers when the enchanted creature is put into the graveyard, and you get to draw a card for each page counter. This one has both enters the battlefield and put into the graveyard triggers. And so on. And there's Yevamai Elder, which I'm sure many people that play Commander EDH are more than familiar with. And you can see here what I've tried to focus on. So those ones were generally things that get triggered when, well, were actually things that get triggered when something dies, or when the creature they were attached to dies. These ones here you can see have some sort of graveyard interaction generally. So they may not, there might be a couple here that are specifically triggered or trigger something when say it's a creature, when they die. But more importantly, it's a general caring about the graveyard in some way. And that was a thing in this particular set. Some sort of graveyard interaction. So now we move on to specific cycles. So this is the cycle of growing enchantments or auras. So they all gain a counter at the beginning of each of your upkeeps, and they become more powerful the longer it's in play. Apparently they were inspired by Tempest's Legacy's Allure, and we've seen these before in the other sets in the block. So that one puts arrow counters on, that one puts page counters, infection, fuse and growth. That one gives you X damage to target attacking or blocking creature, whereas X is the number of arrow counters. This one gives you card draw. This one deals X damage to a player. This one deals X damage to a target creature or player, and this one gets +1/+1 counters on the enchanted creature. So we've got a cycle here, I believe. So you can see they're a mixture of instants and sorceries, one in each colour. And they're often referred to as lobotomy spells because they echo a card called Lobotomy from Tempest. So what they do is, you can see here, they remove, or they do something. So this one removes an enchantment from the game, this one counters an instant or a sorcery spell, this one removes a target non-black creature from the game, this one removes a target non-basic land from the game, and this one removes the target artifact from the game. But in addition, then they search down in the graveyard, the hand, the library for any copies of that card that they've acted upon and remove them from the game. And then that player shuffles his or her library. Apparently these were also reprinted in Betrayers of Kamigawa, so we'll get to see those when we later move on to Betrayers, but that'll be further down the line in this series somewhat. They're also a cycle of sense, so these were common instants or sorceries that have effect that are proportional to the number of cards of their colour you reveal from your hand. So Scent of Jasmine, Brine, Nightshade, Cinder and Ivy. Reveal a number of white cards in your hand, you gain 2 life for each card revealed this way. For blue cards, you get to counter target spell unless its controller plays 1 for each card revealed this way. The Scent of Nightshade, target creature gets -X, number of cards revealed this way. Scent of Cinder, X damage, number of cards, you get the pattern here, and creature gets +X/+S until end of turn, or X is the number of cards revealed this way. So they're all based on the number of cards that you choose to reveal, or when you're casting this. Of course, it's dependent on you having cards in your hand. So yeah, that's what that's about. Then we have a cycle of Sears. So these were uncommon 1/1 wizard creatures with an activated ability costing 2 and then a specific colour. And they mimic in some way that previous sense cycle, but they're stapled to the creature. And it looks like, all their costs are the same on the activation cost, and you have to tap them. So white, it's life based on cards revealed. Blue, counter spell. And the unless cost is 1 for each card revealed. -X for the Nightshade Seer. X damage for the Cinder Seer, and a pump spell of +X for the Ivy Seer. And that's it in terms of the regular cycles. You've also got a vertical cycle in blue. So Fledgling Osprey is the common, Metathran Elite is the uncommon, and Rain Academy Chancellor is the rare. These blue creatures gain an ability as long as they're enchanted. Thran Golem does a similar thing, but it's an artifact. Now there's a couple of mega cycles. They're cycles that go across multiple sets out and go outside of the block. So a mega cycle occurs within a block. A mega cycle, the cycle occurs outside the block. Yavimaya Hollow, there's just one of these. So there's its Destiny. It's part of an original legendary land cycle. I think it's the one that was also slightly altered retrospectively. So this is its in original form. Had Core Haven from Nemesis, Teferi's Isle from Mirage, Volrath Stronghold from Stronghold, Kaldan Necropolis from Invasion, and Yevamiah's Hollow from Urza's Destiny. Another mega cycle we've seen before is the Voices. Voice of Duty, Voice of Reason. These are the 3rd and 4th card in this mega cycle. Uncommon white 2/2 Angels. that have a protection from a different colour. Voice of All, which is outside of the cycle, has protection from a colour chosen as it enters the battlefield, and that was released in Plane Shift. But like I said, that's outside the cycle. The full cycle is Voice of Truth from Nemesis, Voice of Reason, this one from Urza's Destiny, Voice of Grace, Urza's Saga, Voice of Law from Urza's Saga, and Voice of Duty from Urza's Destiny. And you can see each one of them has protection on them for the different colours of mana. So 3 legendaries in the set, 2 creatures and a land. We've seen the land already. Actually, while we're there, let's look at the price of that. Oh, yeah. So we've got Rain, Academy Chancellor. Actually, we've seen 2 of these already. This was part of a vertical cycle. This was part of a mega cycle. Raphaelos, Land War, Emissary, 2 green, 2/1, creature elf, legend, tap, add 1 green mana to your mana pool for each forest you control. I wonder how much of that is. $75. Get you a Raphaelos. So that's the different abilities, mechanics, themes, if you like, and all the cycles that are in the set. Before I go back to the individual cards in the set and we start to look at a few ones that jump out at us, I just wanted to mention the theme decks that were attributed to the set. Again, we're getting to the end of the block, so when we get to the 3rd set of theme decks, of which there are 4, in addition to cards from Urza's Destiny, you will find that they have cards from potentially from the previous 2 sets in the block. And again, depending on the type of deck it is and what it leverages, there may be more or less. Obviously the lands are coming from the, well, these aren't, because they just pick the, when you do a hover over with this tool, it just picks the most recent land, I believe, or a land. But the land would come from the main set from Urza's block, Urza's Saga. So we've got Assassin, which is mono black theme deck with a creature destruction theme. Battle Surge, blue-red theme deck with a haste theme. Enchanter, white-blue theme deck with enchantment theme. And Fiendish Nature, black-green aggro, which uses this when this is put into a graveyard from play theme or when this dies theme. So this is probably, I suspect the other ones are themes based around the set or the block as a whole. I mean, enchantments were a thing across the whole set. This one, I think, is the only one which plays specifically to something that was more prevalent. I mean, they all had this sort of stuff, I suppose, but this was more prevalent in this set. In terms of the upcoming Commander Fodder episode, this is looking highly likely. This is the deck I'm going to choose. That episode is some videos off, actually, because I'm obviously going to be doing various episodes of the deck Durdle, which look at different card pools that are built from different combinations of the 3rd set, both on its own and with earlier combinations of the block as a whole. So I'll get those out of the way first, and then I'll do this particular deck because it contains cards from across the whole set. So I'll do the deck Durdle episodes first. But like I said, it's because it's got, and again, because it's got a legendary in it, I'm going to go with the colour identity of the legend itself. So we'll go for a blue rain deck for this one, rather than I mean, I could technically play blue, white, and then pick a commander from outside the set. But I think for this, I'm going to just do a mono blue rain deck. I will be able to include Thran Golem in this, and I'll have a go, obviously, including any other blue cards in here. But yeah, this is the one I'll do in a future episode. So going back to individual cards. We've already mentioned here false prophet. Again, in white we see things like field surgeon, which are doing minimal damage prevention basically. You'll see various cards in the set that have protection from colours as well. And a lot of stuff that's dependent, again, on something happening, something changing in the board state. Interestingly enough, as far as I know, and I've not seen it up in the set notes, is I don't believe we had any free spells in this set. I don't know if the set was designed with free spells in it and they took them out because of the problems it caused, or whether they just didn't have it in there. What I'll do is, as usual, I'll include all the links to the various, or the link to this set on Scryfall and links to the MTG Wiki article, so you can sort of go down the research rabbit hole if you feel so inclined. And sometimes that will uncover various changes that may or may not have been made. Oh, we have Thieving Magpie. Says Eradicate. Remove target non-black creature from the game. Searches controller's graveyard area. So there we go again. Lobotomy type effect, which we saw earlier. That card. Regeneration we've got. There's a Phyrexian Negotiator. Oh, sorry, not Phyrexian Negotiator. Phyrexian Negator. So we're still seeing these Phyrexian cards crop up. We've got a few horrors as well, sprinkled around the block as a whole. I'm just keeping one eye on certain types of removal as well. We've also got a few like alternative resources cards like Landslide. We've got a few elves here as well. Got Mortani's Decree. It's crazy artwork. on there's Strangulum. So as long as Strangulum is enchanted, he gets +2/+2 and gains flying, first strike and trample. The price on this, what is it now? It does keep going up. It was reprinted. This was just because this was an anthology of containing this here. I think I brought this up before as well. You know, as we move through Magic's history, we're starting to see a little more consistency in the artwork generally. And I think I've mentioned that there is a sweet spot around about one of the core sets, actually. Around, I can't remember which one, just before or just after, where the artwork gets like super consistent. It may even coincide with a slight change to the frame. You'll notice as we move through this, it's interestingly enough, although you get major frame changes at certain key points in Magic's history, there are also a number of minor frame changes that will often occur very subtly. So I might try and keep a lookout for those. Those are harder to often pick up. Apparently, I believe this was the first expansion to feature the creature type of golem. So yeah. And with a lot of things now, some of you might find some of the creature types have been changed in Oracle text. So somewhere in here, I believe there's a townsfolk, which is obviously now a human. So, most expensive card in the set goes to Metalworker. So, only ever printed in this set. All the other ones are what are called promos or part of a deck, like a gold border thing. One of those World Championship decks. Reveal any number of artifact cards in your hand, add 2 colours for each card revealed this way. You have a Myers Hollow. That was only ever printed online or reprinted online. So again, only one set. Academy Rector, printed once and then cropped up in a World Championship deck. You can see a lot of these cropped up in a World Championship deck, which is no surprise. They started releasing those. And Urza's block being as powerful it was, no surprise there's a load of cards in the block as a whole that have turned up in World Championship decks. Replenish, so yeah, these are, and I've pointed out before, as you go down this list, that sort of threshold point where I stop at $10, you find that takes a lot longer or tends to in Urza's block as a whole. There's a lot of high value cards in here. Treachery. There's Raphaelis, $75. There's Incubator, which we saw earlier. And again, none of these have ever been reprinted. And if they have, in another set, and if they have, they've cropped up in like a constructed deck in a precon of some description. So another World Championship. A lot of these went into the 2000 decks, not surprisingly. Opalescence. Repercussion. Yawgmoth Bargain. Mastercore. Well, that was in a ton of World Championship decks. Beginning your upkeep, you may choose and discard a card from your hand. If you don't, sacrifice Masticore. 2 Masticore deals 1 damage to target creature, 2 regenerate Masticore. This has got a lot of utility on it then, so that would explain. And it's a artifact, so it can be played in any deck. Oh look, you can see there's quite a few. I think that indicates that it was in the sideboard. Makes the most logical sense. Donate at 23. Target player gains control of target permanent you control. Interesting. Powder keg. Phyrexian Negator. And that was in one of those dual decks. And again, cropped up in a couple of World Championship decks. Let's see, we're still around the $20 mark. Opposition. So, was reprinted in 7th edition and ended up in the Invocations in Amonkhet. $13. Aura Thief. 13 only in Urza's. Carnival of Souls. All hovering around $13. Covetous Dragon, sorry. Covetous Dragon. Attrition, cropped up in a commander deck, and Invocations. Oh, getting close to the $10 mark. Elvish Piper, yeah, that's been reprinted multiple times. So now we're only starting to get the cards that have been reprinted in other sets quite a few times. It's in Masters 25. Well, I think this might be the first time I've had to go to the next page. Thran Dynamo. So now, now we move below 10. And so this is, not surprisingly, probably more specialised. In addition to precons, so in Arch Enemy precons, Commander 2019 and 2014, but also it's been in Iconic Masters, in the Mystery Booster, a couple of World Championship decks. So let's look at our EDH All Stars. You've seen a number already. I've highlighted a few specifically, and so no surprise here. So Thran Dynamo, Urza's Incubator, Yavimaya Elder, Apprentice Necromancer. What deck's that in? Quite a few mono black and multicolour decks there. Yep, good for Graveyard Recursion. Although you do have to sack it. It was in Ultimate Masters as well. Yeah, Yavimaya Hollow, Junk Diver, Bubbling Muck, Attrition, Academy Rector, Elvish Piper, Replenish. Yep. Let's just see how many decks on their website are actually. This is in 7% of total. And obviously a number of colourless commanders. I'm just wondering how much, if anything. So the artwork's never changed. I've always found these storage cards fascinating, actually. There's a number of these in Magic's history that crop up. So this is an artifact one. As long as storage matrix is untapped, each player untapped. So it doesn't really store anything. That's what I wondered. It's not like those sort of storage lands or anything, which you get the option to accumulate counters if you don't untap whatever it is. So that's an interesting name for what it does. Sigil of Sleep. I was trying to think where I recognise that from. It's from the Venser versus Kostiel deck. What does that end up in? Okay, so there we have it. Another interesting dive into older Magic sets. So hopefully now we're nicely set up so that I can press on with an episode of the Deck Durdle where I'll just build a deck from a card pool of 6 boosters from Urza's Destiny. Then we'll do, after I've done that one, we'll move on to Urza's Saga plus Urza's Destiny, then Urza's Legacy plus Urza's Destiny, and then Urza's Saga, Urza's Legacy, and Urza's Destiny. So you can see by the time we get to the third set in the block, there's all the different combinations, which I love to just see what sort of interactions you get when you try and build stuff from a sealed pool of 6 cards. So once again, thanks for watching. Bye for now.